Good morning, dear children. Welcome to the 11th Standard Biology lecture, paper 1. Last lecture we have seen the second chapter we started with, that is systematics of living organisms. In this topic, we are talking about how classification is done. In the first topic, we saw how we can classify. But exactly how the classification can be done is taught in this topic. In the first topic, we saw there are many living organisms, and to know we have many techniques like herbarium, botanical gardens. We also have many libraries regarding it. So this is all museums which we have studied in the first topic. Now in the second topic, we are talking about classification. Systematic of living organisms. Systematics is nothing but a systematic way of organizing all the living organisms according to their similarities and dissimilarities. Here we are talking about classification, the very basic thing on which we can study every living organism on this planet Earth very properly. So to begin with, we have PPTs today. We will just go through it, understand it well, and that would be nice for you all to read. Okay. Welcome with the topic systematics of living organism. What is classification? Classification, it is an arrangement of organisms. We are arranging all the organisms or group of organisms in accordance with a particular and well-established plan. How are we classifying them? We are arranging. What are we arranging? Organisms or group of organisms. With what? With a particular plan. Whether they have similarities or dissimilarities. It is based on what? Similarities and dissimilarities among the organisms. If the organisms are similar, we place them in one group. If they are dissimilar, we place them in the other group. The most important thing in our life also, in our own house, especially girls, you may be having many boxes. One for your earrings, one for your rings, one for your bangles, your clutches, your rubber bands, your clips, everything. We classify them. We don't mess it up, because when we mess it up, we don't find anything. The world itself was in a mess that it had many living organisms. But man has a wonderful brain given by God, which has an inquisitivity in it, which made him classify everything and study everything for his benefit. Do you get me? Why did we classify them? For our benefit. If we would not know what is to be eaten and what is not to be eaten, man would have died because of his less knowledge or not gaining knowledge, I would say. Do you get me? The reason of classification is our inquisitive nature, and it is based on the similarities and dissimilarities among the organisms. The next slide. Here we spoke about artificial method of classification, which is done by Linnan's. Linnan's system of classification. It is based on what? On what we can observe. It is not concerned with evolution. This is an artificial method. Only what we can see. We are observing the thing, we are looking at it, and then we are placing them. Means what is similar can be seen, what is dissimilar can be seen, and accordingly we are classifying them. This is artificial method of classification. The next method is natural method of classification, which is done by Bentham and Hooker. It is based on objectively significant rather than being selected for convenience like artificial system. Here there is a significant character. What is the significance between two living organisms? Are they significantly same or different? In which way? That is a character which is used by Bentham and Hooker for classification. Then comes phylogenetic classification, which is a very good one. In this classification, it is based on the evolution. Engler and Prantl has done this classification. This classification speaks about how evolution occurred, and that's why it is used by many of the scientists like Carl Woese used it for three-domain theory, as well as Bentham and Hooker. R.H. Whitaker used it for five-kingdom system of classification, which we have to study for the exam. So it is a phylogenetic method of classification in which evolution is the basic thing. These are the three different types of classification. There are some more types of classification. Before that, we'll just read this part. In the system of classification, the term like taxa and categories are often used. Each category is referred as a unit of classification. In fact, it represents a rank and is commonly termed as taxa. What are we saying? In the system of classification, the term like taxa and categories are referred as a unit of classification. What are they? A unit of classification. They are represented as a rank and is commonly termed as taxa. Next type of classification is the three-domain system of classification, a phylogenetic method. Used by whom? By Carl Woese. It is believed that life originated on Earth in its very simple form. When life originated on Earth, you have a theory, Operon-Halden theory. You have many more theories to study of evolution in standard 12. There you will see how life came into existence. And when it came into existence, the climatical conditions at that time were different, and now they are totally different. How changes occurred in this geography, as well as in the climate, as well as in the organisms, and those who resist this change have survived. This is what we get to see in this three-domain theory. Three-domain theory speaks about three different domains. Domain is more vast as compared to kingdom. Now, what is a kingdom? When I say kingdom plantae, I'm talking about plants. When I say kingdom animalia, I'm talking about all the animals. When I say kingdom fungi, I'm talking about all the funguses. So it's like that. But this domain is a concept which is much more larger than a kingdom. Over here, they have classified all the living organisms in three domains. What are the three domains? Archaea, second one is bacteria, and third one is eukarya. Archaea and bacteria are the prokaryotic or the primitive ones, in which we get to see that the nucleus is not very well developed, not very well established. Nucleus is not prominent. I cannot say that in the center of the cell the nucleus is present. What do you mean by primitive nucleus? Which is not well developed. Means what? Not well developed means what? It doesn't have a nuclear membrane. It does not have a nucleoplasma. It does not have a nucleolus. I cannot see the DNA strands in it. This is what is not a proper nucleus. Primitive nucleus, which is present but cannot be located, that this is it. Did you get me? So this was the criteria. In this, archaea and bacteria had the primitive or prokaryotic cells, and in eukarya, they saw an evolution occurring to eukaryotic cells. Primitive nucleus कडून proper nucleus कडे झालेली वाटचाल आहे. This is about the three domains of life. Next classification is chemotaxonomy, based on the chemical constituents which are present inside the cell. Cell wall मध्ये काय constituent आहे किंवा नाही याच्यावर हे classification अवलंबून होतं. This is chemotaxonomy. After that comes numerical taxonomy. Numerical taxonomy, the system is based on quantification of character and develops a logarithm for classification. The basic aim of this taxonomy was to create a taxonomy using numeric logarithm, like cluster analysis, rather than using subjective evaluation and their properties. The system was first proposed by Sokal and Smith in 1963. This is one method of classification. Cladogram is one method which is used by the three domain using the tree. Next one is phylogeny. Phylogeny, it is the evolutionary relationship of organism. Here we speak about evolution. Primitive unicellular cell to primitive multicellular or well-developed eukaryotic multicellular organism. Do you get द डिफरन्स. एक युनिसेल्युलर आहे, प्रिमिटिव्ह आहे, त्याच्याकडून तो मल्टीसेल्युलर कडे जातो. मग तो मल्टीसेल्युलर कडून युकॅरियोटिक, मल्टीसेल्युलर कडे जाऊन प्रोकॅरियोटिक कडून युकॅरियोटिक कडे जातो. ट्रान्सफॉर्मेशन होते, बदल घडतोय. वातावरणातल्या बदलाप्रमाणे हा बदल घडत गेला आणि याला फायलोजेनेटिक क्लासिफिकेशन म्हणतात, जे R.H. विटेकर यांनी केलं आणि कार्ल वोज यांनी केलं, ज्यांनी 3 डोमेन सिस्टीम आणि विटेकर यांची सिस्टीम अस्तित्वात आणली. क्लासिफिकेशनच्या या वेगवेगळ्या पद्धती आहेत. या पद्धती वापरून वर्गीकरण करण्याचं काम वर्षानुवर्ष चालू आहे. याच्यामध्ये R.H. विटेकर यांची पद्धत आपण शिकणार आहोत. We are talking about classification, and over here we have seen many different methods and ways of classification. This is all done because of the inquisitive nature of man. He wanted to classify all the living organisms in every way that I demand a thing and I should know what is there which is existing. Do you get me? And this was the reason of classification. The next one is DNA barcoding, a recent one, which has variety of DNA barcodes in it. You know, DNA has a code. You must have studied. Or if you have not studied yet, or you don't have an idea, in standard 12th, you will be talking about this. DNA sequence and DNA barcode, किंवा DNA coding, encoding, decoding, हे सगळं आपल्याला बघायला मिळणार आहे. That is a genetic information. ही काय अनुवांशिक माहिती आहे. आणि ही अनुवांशिक माहिती मॅच करता येते. मग त्याच्यामधून आपल्याला कळतं की साम्य कोणते आहेत आणि भेद कोणते, वेगळेपणा काय आहे. त्याच्यासाठी या सगळ्या DNA बारकोडचं काय केलंय, एकत्रीकरण केलंय. वी हॅव टेकन अप ऑल द DNA barcodes, kept them together of different species, match the barcode sequence and know the similarities and dissimilarities. Unknown samples are also kept. What are the changes occurring in them? Identification can be done, and what evolutions can happen we can study with the help of this in the classification. These are all the methods of classification using different criteria. Now, looking at all the methods of classification, I hope you don't have any problem regarding this. This was all about classification. Different methods of classification, different people who have done the classifications, and this gives just a link from where R.H. Whitaker has got the idea of 5 kingdom system, which we are going to study tomorrow. Before we study that, we will talk about taxonomy, taxonomic features. What are taxonomic features? On the basis of this taxonomic features, how classification is done. We came across one word, kingdom. Domain is much larger than a kingdom. Domain speaks about all the living organisms. Kingdom specifies the living organism, whether it is a plant, whether it is an animal, whether it is a fungus, whether it is a prokaryotic cell, which is unicellular, or a unicellular multicellular prokaryotic cell. It depends upon that. So phylogeny, or I can say classification, in different ways gives us an idea how the scientists have helped us to classify all the living organisms. After classifying them, we have to place them in an order, place them in a systematic order so that we can study them well, keeping in mind their similarities and dissimilarities. Keep this in mind forever. Classification is nothing but based on similarities and dissimilarities. The basic thing in this is nothing but we know the similarities and then only we group them. All these words are going to come tomorrow in your dictionary, that how is the sequence, kingdom, division, class, subclass, and so on. So we will be studying about that. What is a class? What is a genus? What is a species? We are going to talk about that in tomorrow's lecture very quickly. And tomorrow we will be beginning with the 5 kingdom system of classification. Next week we will be continuing with that, and after that you will begin with the 3rd topic, which will be taught by Lonema. So this is all about the living systematics of living organisms, how classification is done. I hope you all have understood it very well. It's really very important to know this. Though the topics are deleted from the syllabus, I thought it is an important method to give you an proper guidance about it, because unless and until you don't have a link about this, you cannot understand the classification. Now you understand what is phylogeny. Again, I'm insisting on that. Phylogenetic classification. Phylogenetic classification is nothing based on evolution. What is it based on? Evolution. How evolution occurred? Whether the cell was moving or not moving, whether it had flagella or no, whether the nucleus was prominent or not, it had a primitive nucleus, it was a prokaryotic cell, how it switched on to being eukaryotic. This evolutionary steps have led to the five kingdom system of classification. These evolutionary steps have made Carl Woese classify all the living organisms into three domains, that is archaea, bacteria and eukarya. This is all about classification which we have been studying. This is all for the day. The only homework given to you all for today is read all the definitions, understand the different methods of classification, what are the type of classification, enlist the types of classification in a book and send it to me on my WhatsApp. There are very few students who obey what I say. I'm very sorry to say that. All are my children and I want a good development in every child of mine. God bless you all and have a wonderful day. And if any queries regarding this topic, any queries regarding paper one, you can contact me anytime. Thank you. God bless you all.